boy, so much that we don't know about a lot of the civil rights activists who haven't been mentioned. Black History Month is a point in time when we recognize Black accomplishments and contributions and struggles of the African American community within the context of the ongoing repression and exploitation of our people and the gains that were made throughout this struggle of a society under U.S. capitalism and imperialism. Every year we pay tribute to noted civil rights activists like Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, W.E.B. Du Bois, Ida B. Wells, and so on, so that we will never forget our work, our struggle, our abilities, and our resilience as a nation struggling within a nation. But we've also left out some significant contributions, either by disassociating ourselves with their politics or by government attempts to eliminate them because of their radical views or party affiliations that are perceived as un-American by both white and black ideologues who have control over our public preservations and legacies. Sometimes a legacy can be buried within the rubble of politics for a long time, waiting to be unearthed and refined like a diamond in the rough. Such is the legacy of Claudia Jones. Do you know her?
Yeah.
When I ask my friends that, they say, no, I don't, who is she? You know, tell me something about her. You know, maybe I need to look her up and find out because I don't know. Which is the effect of the wipeout of her legacy, which was threatened by the U.S. witch hunts of McCarthyism against communism and the McCarran-Walters Act against immigration that targeted her for extrication and obliteration. So Claudia Jones was a special interest because she was a dangerous element, a triple threat. She was a black woman, well, she was black, she was a woman, and she was a communist.
Scared of the death.
She was a force to be reckoned with. During a time when this nation was on the verge of social and political upheaval and possible revolutionary insurrection amongst the working people who were suffering from a depression, which sounds familiar, don't it, today?
Yes.
Between 1930 and 1950, this was going on too. And Claudia was at the height of her ability to articulate as a skillful, radical black female journalist, a community organizer, a theoretician, and critique of the social economic structure of oppression of colored people, both local and international. She was powerful in both theory and practice, with a radical revolutionary approach to challenge the oppressive nation-state practices within the context of U.S. imperialism, its repression, and contradictory laws. And she launched transnational challenges to U.S. foreign policy from the perspective of a Marxist-Leninist theory, which made her most dangerous because she had the ability to address a wide range of issues and was widely known as the Communist Party's principal theorist regarding the woman's question. She wrote reviews, theses, and essays on Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism, Afro-Asian Caribbeanism, immigration rights, as well as the West Indian diasporas of struggle by using her journalist skills to integrate issues of race, class, gender on local and international levels, which served to broaden the civil rights movement and to implicate U.S. imperialism beyond its jurisdictions. Though we do not have a plethora of information on her huge legacy, some credible information has surfaced through family, friends, her comrades in the Communist Party and the British Caribbean community, as well as her FBI files. Mother of Carnival she was, and known to be left of Karl Marx, literally and politically. She was a poet, and much so during her time in prison, where she wrote of her indignation in an abstract of poetry, She was well noted for the triple oppression analysis of black women theory of the Communist Party. She brought this theory to the forefront of the Communist Party before all was said and done in her lifetime, and as taken from the context of a book that, to her tribute, known Left of Karl Marx by Carol Boyce Davies. I'm quoting her article, in her article, Unity of Women in the Cause of Peace, in which she asserts, if the party wanted to be a place of equality, then it means, above all, fighting for the economic equality of women, because her economic dependence on men in our society and her exclusion from production makes for a double exploitation of women, and triply so for Negro women in present-day society.
I know that's right.
Claudia's influences concerning the women question were heavily influenced by Maud White and Louise Thompson Patterson, both communists and international activists who applauded the governments of China and Russia for their inclusive policies towards women. So Claudia Jones was born Claudia Cumberbatch in 1960 in Portal, Spain, Trinidad, a British colony. Her family lived well off in Trinidad until economic instability crashed the cocoa industry, causing her father to lose his job, which forced the family to migrate to Harlem, 1924 in New York. Claudia Jones was 8 years old when she came to America with her 3 sisters and aunt as immigrants to live in the squalid, impoverished conditions of Harlem, New York. And shortly after they assimilated, her mother died due to spinal meningitis and overwork in the garment factories. Her father could only find custodial work to support the family, and they were so poor that Claudia missed a citizenship award in her high school because she didn't have clothes to attend. So due to the poor conditions of her environment in 1932, and at the age of 17, she contracted tuberculosis and was committed to the hospital for a year, and she suffered severe lung damage, and that affected her health throughout her life. Her health conditions, her living environment, the death of her mother, her father's unemployment situation, her inability to find work except in laundries and factories, as well as her sister's occupations being confined to housekeeping, would be her first-hand encounter with racism, sexism, poverty, and working class exploitation that would later inspire her to articulate as a journalist the triple oppression of black women theory and the woman question, known in her articles entitled An End to Neglect of the Negro Woman and Half the World, which would serve as vanguard to advance equal pay and equal rights of all women of the world, starting with the black woman in order to liberate all civil rights movements for real change. You would have to start with us. So she accelerated quickly as a radical black female journalist, activist, and theoretician in her day when black journalism was on the rise and on the verge of igniting the civil rights movement of the 60s and the 70s. So between 1935 and 36, she worked in a Negro nationalist newspaper with a weekly column called Claudia's Comments. And that was an editorial for comments on general press exchanges regarding Negro trade workers, Ethiopian, and Pan-African news. She attended marches and rallies as a teenager, like matters surrounding the Scottsboro 9 rape case, in which 9 black youths were convicted by an all-white jury of raping 2 white girls who were well-known prostitutes. And she was impressed by how the Communist Party's legal defense raised the issue to a national level, tying the case up in the appeals court, exposing the racist injustice of the criminal court system. And she decided then to join the Young Communist League for 1 year, and by 1937 she was trained 6 months by the Communist Party USA, then elected to National Council of the Young Communist League. And in 1940 she became associate editor of the Weekly Review, where she wrote a weekly column, The Quiz, wherein she provided answers to political questions on religion and the Soviet Union and other political inquiries. She was editor-in-chief of the column known as Political Score, which responded to political and social events and racial concerns surrounding the African-American community. She also brought acknowledgement to her father, who was a journalist in a black newspaper in Harlem, who was her mentor, who influenced her at an early age regarding her written expression.